Alright, today we're going to be tying a variation of a Jig Perdigon. The hook in the vise is a Hanak H400BL size 14. The bead on it is a fulling mill slotted tungsten bead in 3.2 millimeter. For the body, we're going to be using Veevus 10-aught Fluorescent Orange Thread. And over the top of that, we'll be adding Veevus Pearl Tinsel in medium. For the tail on it, we're using CDL or Cote de Leon medium speckled. And then finish the whole fly off at the very end. We're going to be using this Loon UV clear fly finish in flow, and a little wing case on the back of the fly in Loon UV fly finish black. So to start this fly off, we're just going to start our thread on there a little bit, drop it, and go ahead and cut this tag off. Sometimes that slotted bead can be a little bit of a pain, so we're just going to make a thread dam right behind it, or thread block, so it's not going to go anywhere. Just make a big clump of thread right behind the bead so it doesn't move around on us. Once we get that on there, the bead's not going anywhere, then we can work our thread back down towards the bend of the hook. Usually I stop somewhere between the tip of the hook and where if this was a barbed hook, where the barb would be on the hook. But from here, we're going to tie in our Cote de Leon. And for this, you typically only need 2 to 3 pieces. For this, I'm actually just going to be tying in 2 pieces of it. And you want this to be about somewhere between half the shank of the hook to even a full shank behind. So you're going to tie that right on top of the shank. Wrap this down. Once you got that on there, you can go ahead and trim this piece up here some. And the best thing to do here is, my thread's already kind of spinning, but we're going to turn the hook point away. But we're going to let our thread flatten out a little bit. Just give it one big twist. And that'll help lay our thread down a little bit nicer, because we're going to make a thread body. Before we get too far on that, though, we're going to tie in our medium pearl tinsel. So tie this right here at the back of the hook. And we'll just kind of put that out of our way. Now that we've got that in and our thread's flattened out, we're going to make kind of a teardrop shape fly. I'm just going to try to taper the body down, thicker up at the bead, thinner down towards the tail. And you can kind of see my thread starting to clump up again, so I'm going to spin it out and try to hopefully get it to flatten out some. You want to keep the tail of this hook fairly thin, so we don't want to go too far back there. Okay, that's looking pretty good, so we're going to throw a whip finish in this guy right here real quick. That'll help keep the thread out of our way. Just going to use this little function right here on the vise. Now we're really going to use that rotary function on this fly. We're just going to wrap this pearl tinsel all the way up towards the bead of the hook. You always want this one, you really want to have touching wraps going. You can even overlap some too. Alright, now we got that wrapped all the way up. We're going to take our thread back. Now we're going to tie this tinsel down, make sure it's not going to go anywhere on us. A couple wraps, doesn't need a whole lot. Let's go ahead and trim this piece here. And now again, throw just couple whip finishes in this. Trim our thread from here, and now we're going to add in our fly finish. So we're going to start off with the flow. You don't need very much of this. You're just going to add a little bit on, and then we're going to kind of smooth it out, and you want to keep that taper of the fly so it's nice and thick up towards the bead of the hook, but then thins out towards the tail. You want to cover all the thread, all the tinsel, cover all of that up. You don't want to use too much of it though, because then you'll won't have that nice taper, and that taper is what helps it sink in the water. Once you get that taper down, you're going to grab your UV flashlight. Go ahead and hit that and spin it around a couple of times. Helps really cure it. And then the final step of this fly is you're going to take your black UV finish. This stuff you really got to shake up a little bit before you use it. But you can kind of still see on that bead, you can still see that little slotted piece on the very top right up here. And we're just going to add in a little bit of a black wing case right on top right there. You got it shaking, I'm just going to add a little bit onto there. Even up on top of the bead a little bit. And hit that with your flashlight, UV flashlight. Sometimes it might take 1 to 2 applications of the black to make that wing case, to make it appear super dark, but there we go. And these UV lights do a pretty good job of curing the UV finish, but to really get everything to secure and harden on there well is once you tie all your flies and get them finished in the UVs, to set them out in the sunlight for a couple of minutes. But that is your variation of a Jig Perdigon.